You're watching Book TV on C-SPAN 2. 48 hours of nonfiction, books, and authors every weekend on C-SPAN 2. Well, fall is one of the biggest book-selling seasons and book release seasons of them all. And this is our 2011 Fall Book Preview Show. We're joined by two industry watchers and book followers. Bob Minzesheimer is with USA Today. He's the book critic for that newspaper. He's in New York City. And Jason Boog is with GalleyCat, which is a website that covers books and the publishing industry. Gentlemen, thank you for being on Book TV today. And I want to start by asking you which book you're most excited about or looking forward to this fall. Bob Minzesheimer, we'll start with you.
Okay. Peter, if I can cheat a little bit, I'm going to mention, I think, 3 books. I'll try to do them briefly. One is already out, and for a book critic, that's sort of a no-no. I should have read it already, and that is Carl Melanthus's book, and it's called What It Feels Like to Go to War. Melanthus wrote a novel about Vietnam last year that was published called Matterhorn, which I thought was extraordinary. It also took him 20-some years to get it published. He's shifted to nonfiction to write both for a military and a civilian audience what combat is really like, which he thinks the military really doesn't prepare soldiers for. They prepare them for the sort of technological and physical demands of war, but not for some of the emotional and philosophical. He's very good at writing about other writers and novelists about war. That's one book. Shifting, there's a book coming from David Margolick, who writes for Vanity Fair, called Elizabeth and Hazel, Two Women of Little Rock. And it's about 2 women who were 15 years old in 1957 who were captured in a famous photograph. There's a black student entering Little Rock High School, Central High School, and there's a white student yelling at her. And this is a story of their sort of improbable first friendship, and years later, and then how that friendship fell apart. If they made a movie of this, it would probably end with the friendship. And finally, like a lot of people, I'm looking forward to seeing what Jaqueline Kennedy had to say to Arthur Schlesinger shortly after the assassination of President Kennedy. That's an oral history that's coming out, I believe, next week.
The Jaqueline Kennedy book, and that's called The Historic...
Right, she's the editor.
Right, Historic Conversations on Life with John F. Kennedy. Is that the book?
That's the book, right.
Bob Minzesheimer, why did the 2 women from Little Rock, why did their friendship fall apart?
I haven't gotten that far in the book yet. We'll have to stay tuned.
Jason Boog of GalleyCat, what are you looking forward to?
I gotta say, I'm looking forward to Susan Orlean's new book that's coming out this fall about Rin Tin Tin, the famous dog that starred in a number of movies. When I first heard about the book, I have to confess, I was a little skeptical. I said, who would want to read about a dog on TV? And I read the first excerpt in the New Yorker the other week, and it just blew me away. I'm really excited to see this story. It crosses different world wars. It's a fantastic story, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, you both mentioned biographies, so let's look at some other biographies that are coming out this season, and that includes Christopher Hitchens, arguably essays by Christopher Hitchens. Jason Boog, what can you tell us about this?
Well, Hitchens hasn't put together a collection of essays like this in a few years. I think 2004 was the last time he put out a big collection of essays like this. So it's going to cover a lot of ground, everything from his controversial stance on the Iraq War to Al-Qaeda, even to some more current events. And he's right now fairly ill with cancer, so it's one of his, this book's really going to be, put him out in the public, and I think be a very important book in his career.
Bob,
if I could add to that, excuse me, Peter, I was going to add, I've been dipping in and out of the Hitchens, and the great thing about him is whether you agree with him or not, whether he's writing about a topic that's in the news or not, he is just a lot of fun to read.
Michael Moore has his biography coming out, Here Comes Trouble. He's also going to be our in-depth guest in October.
I'm really excited about that book, actually.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Boog.
Yeah, he's a Michigan boy. I grew up watching his work on Flint, and this actually shows his life before he was a filmmaker. So I'm really looking forward to seeing these stories from his life.
Bob?
I was going to say he is. We did a short interview with him in the paper. I think it was actually today, which would be by the time you see this last Thursday. And he describes it as sort of a. He says it's not a memoir. That's sort of an anti-memoir. Just some stories, including. I think he was 13 years old, wandering around the Capitol and got lost, and he ran into Bobby Kennedy.
Now, gentlemen, a book by Michael Moore, will that automatically be a large print run?
I would say yes. Yes. Go. I'm sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, he has such a big following online already. If you go to his website right now, you can see all the people that are talking about this book. I think he's going to sell a lot of copies.
Well, two other well-known authors who might generate automatic large print runs, and they're economic books, Sylvia Nasar and Michael Lewis. Sylvia Nasar is coming out with Grand Pursuit, The Story of Economic Genius. Michael Lewis, Boomerang, Travels in the Third World. What can you tell us about these two books, Bob Minzesheimer?
Well, Sylvia Nasar is probably best known for her last book, which was A Beautiful Mind, which was sort of an oxymoron. It was a bestseller about a mathematician, John Nash. It was helped by the fact that it became a movie with Russell Crowe. So she has a big following. I think what she's trying to do is take economics, which has been called the sort of dismal science, and add some humanity, personality to it. I've just began it, and she comes across, to me, was a new idea that 150 years ago or so, the idea that that most people were doomed to live lives filled with poverty and despair was an accepted given. And she traces how that has changed over 200 years or 150 years.
Jason Boog, what about Michael Lewis?
I'm really looking forward to this book, actually. His last book, The Big Short, looked at the economic meltdown and how the stock market crash affected our lives here in the United States. But his next book is actually going to go around the world and look at the different ways it affected other countries, from Europe to the developing countries around us. And it's really an important thing to do right now, I think, to just not forget that we're not the only ones suffering through economic crisis right now. There's a lot of countries struggling, and I think looking at the ways it's affected the global commerce is a really important thing to do right now.
And Mr. Lewis, go ahead, Mr. Minzesheimer.
Okay, I also noticed his subtitle, he talks about the new third world, which is the idea that there was this strict division between the developed world and the developing countries, the poor countries. And I think he's trying to get beyond that and show what easy credit did to a lot of economies, including our own.
Now, there's a third...
He's also a delightful, he's also a delightful writer.
There's a third economics book coming out by Nicholas Wapshott, Keynes and Hayek. What is this book about? Jason?
Yeah, I'm actually really, this is something that really interests me personally. I'm actually working on a book of my own right now about the Great Depression and how writers in New York City survived that. And this book looks at a very critical moment when economists in the United States were trying to decide how we should respond to the Great Depression. And the two different views that came out, one was we should spend a lot of money and put these programs to put the country back to work, or we should be more cautious. And we're going to see these two dynamics play out all through 2012 during the election. So I think it's really a good time to read up on these issues.
Right, and Frederick Hayek, who I believe was Austrian economist, who didn't believe that government should intervene, was recently on the bestseller list thanks to Glenn Beck, who's a big advocate of Hayek's theories.
Well, Jason Boog, a book that's gotten a lot of attention out here on the East Coast, and I want to get the West Coast perspective. It's already out. It's Dick Cheney's book, In My Time, A Personal and Political Memoir. Is that getting a lot of buzz or noise out on the West Coast?
Yeah, believe it or not, the last time I checked, it's the #2 book in the history section in Amazon, and it's about the #10 book in Amazon overall. So yes, I think people all over the country are really interested in reading this book. Cheney served during a very crucial moment for our country, and it doesn't look like he's apologizing for much, and he's already caused all sorts of reactions from different officials that worked with him, saying he took cheap shots, some people think. So yeah, it's caused a stir all around the country, and you've seen him on television a lot too. I think that helps.
Bob Minzesheimer. Go ahead, Bob.
On USA Today's list, it was number 4, and our list includes both paperback and hardcover fiction, nonfiction. However, to put a little bit in perspective,